yes, I was in the independent, but I wasn't a tech. And, I was at the dealer, and man, I thought I was awesome at pulling plastic. I was the best plastic puller. You think you're good at something, and then you start working on all makes and models. And I'm seeing these guys, flagging 18, 28 hours a day and stuff, and upper controller and bushings on like the S10s, not even pulling the wheels. Just these tricks and stuff. And I'm like, God, I did not know that this world existed.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting, thought-provoking episode of the Jaded Mechanic Podcast. My name's Jeff, and I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and insight into the toils and triumphs of a career in automotive repair. After more than 20 years of skin knuckles and tool debt, I want to share my perspectives and hear other people's thoughts about our industry. So pour yourself a strong coffee or grab a cold Canadian beer and get ready for some great conversation. With me tonight, I've got a very, very good friend of mine, Mr. Cody Gotti of Cody's Diagnostics and Programming. How are you tonight, man?
Good. How you doing, Jeff?
Oh man, it's we were talking about the weather just before we came on, and it's hot, but it's not as hot as what you've got, so I can't complain. So
yeah, it's so I'm out in Arizona, and we're on 54 days of over 105 degree temperatures. So yeah, it's, today was 108. Last week, it was getting up to 113, 114. So this is the time of year I'm better in cooler temperatures. Yeah. Let's just say that.
You were saying if you could start all the days at like 5 a.m. if the shops would be open at 5, you'd go there and bang out a bunch of work and try to be home and out of the sun by noon, right? Because
yeah, come 3 o'clock, it's torture out here, and so and we'll get into this, but I'm mobile, so a lot of my me going to the shops, I'm typically out in the parking lot. I don't like to obstruct the shop flow or anything else, unless it's a diagnostics and I need a bay and stuff like that. But just being out in the parking lot and everything, your equipment starts overheating, you start overheating. It doesn't take long. Even if it's a 15-20 minute program and stuff, it's that time adds up for sure.
So I meant to ask you, how many years have you been doing this on your, I don't want to say on your own, because I know the wife is a pretty big proponent and helps you out quite a bit, but on your mobile job, how many years has it been now? 5?
No, so actually I started, and we'll get more into the backstory in a little bit, but I started January 1st, 2021. So right after COVID. All
right.
So I'm almost 3 years into it.
Right. Okay. All right. I thought it was a little bit longer than that, but I guess I've seen you around so long on the Facebook groups and whatever. I just always thought that's you were doing a lot of mobile stuff then.
So I was, you've probably seen the Cody's Auto Diagnostics from, building tools and stuff like that. I've been doing that for about 5-6 years and everything. And then, I went mobile 2021. So, and there was a list of things that kind of led into that, I should say. But yeah, I made the jump and been mobile since then. So
So how does the Cody story start?
Oh man. Okay. So yeah, it started, I'm originally born and raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay.
And grew up there. I got, come high school, I went to 2 different high schools, one high school for my freshman year, another high school for my sophomore year, excuse me. And I was just kind of, my parents wanted to retire and they wanted to move somewhere where it was warmer, where we didn't have snow and everything else. And I was planning on finishing up my high school career in Colorado, and I had my parents offered that opportunity to stay with family and do so. But I wanted to change. I wasn't hanging out with the right crowd of people and kind of get my life back together, I should say. And so I decided to come down here with my parents and graduated high school, my senior year. My junior and senior year in high school, I started taking automotive shop, which we didn't have that in my school in Colorado. So I was real fortunate about getting into that. I was always kind of a Legos kid and everything else. So I really like taking things apart, putting things back together, trying to put things back together, depending on what it is. But, kind of fell into the automotive and everything. It's something I wanted to do. I applied for UTI when I graduated, and I got accepted, and it was me along with three other guys from my high school, which is kind of unheard of for because they only select a certain amount, especially not from like usually the same school. So we were all accepted and everything, and we were all planning on renting a house and everything up in Phoenix is where we were going to go to school, and graduated high school, and things kind of fell through on that. At least on my end, I kind of had a falling out with some of the guys. So that being said, I was like, you know what, spending the $30,000 or however much to go to the school and stuff, you know, I pretty much was. It wasn't in my cards at that time. I don't think I would have taken it as seriously as I would have now. So that being said, like I said, I graduated, and then shortly after graduation, I ended up getting a job at a local gas station. And this gas station, there's also an automotive repair shop and then a 4-bay service station. So I applied there, and the guy that hired me, he's a good buddy of mine. I actually saw him today. He works at another shop, but he hired me, and I don't know if I would have hired myself at that time. Just I walked in, I had a blonde afro, and I was grungy looking, but he took a chance on me. He saw something in me, and then took a chance on me and everything. I had no experience or anything except for a little bit of the high school, shop class, and started out there working from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. Pretty much after 5 o'clock, the techs are gone, so it's sweeping and mopping the base. It's kind of custodial stuff, but it got my foot in the door into the shop and everything, and so I was there for about 6 months, and then got onto the day shift, and then 2 months after getting onto the day shift, I got pulled into the office, and my boss was like, we really want to have you be like the assistant manager. So, now I become like the service rider. He was into dirt late model racing at the time. So he was gone. He was gone quite a bit, so he needed somebody to be there to greet the customers, to get them rode up, shuttles home, things in that nature. Now, the shop that I worked at, just to kind of give a little backstory, this is a real reputable company here in town, and they at the time they hired the A level technicians. They wouldn't hire a C level technician and really train them or build them up within the company. They wanted those master certified techs, top dogs in Tucson here, and the company had an amazing reputation and everything else because they had top talent. So in order for, so I became assistant manager, and I enjoyed that, but man, I really wanted to work on cars.
Yeah.
And there was really no progression for me. I was right under the owner. The owner's son is actually was my boss. So, I was pretty much right under him technically. Right. And, to become a technician and stuff, I wasn't that A level guy. I didn't have the experience and everything else, and I really wouldn't have gotten the education or the mentorship to become that A level guy or B level or C level or whatever it is. Right? I really wouldn't have got that training, even though I got some training and I overlooked a lot of stuff in the shop and I learned a lot. It wasn't that I wasn't making the progress that I really wanted to make. So I continued to do that, and I was there for about 2.5 years. But I would say after about 2 years of being the assistant manager, shop foreman, or not shop foreman, but the service rider and everything, I got a job opportunity at a local dealership, and so I took that opportunity, and I started out as an apprentice because obviously I didn't have the skills and stuff to be a full-blown technician. So I was working underneath somebody at that time. And I continued to work at the gas station. So I was working 7 days a week for about 2 years. And so during that time, and the dealership that I was at was a Lexus dealership. So I know we've talked, you talked a lot about, dealerships and everything else. Well, I I was in the new car, used car department, so I was pulling plastics and doing PDIs, and as far as a dealership, that's really not being a technician. I mean,
No,
you're
no.
you're not doing much. I would get the timing belts, and I would get bigger services and stuff, but we're working on cars that really didn't break down, especially at that time. This is 2003 at this time. It's maintenance stuff. It's 60Ks, 30Ks, stuff like that. It's fluid changes, the gravy money and stuff. So again, I didn't feel. Oh, and that was another thing. So when I got hired on there, they said that all the technicians get. They sent them to training out in California and everything, and I was like, man, that's awesome. That's what me not going to UTI, I felt that I was behind.
Stout, yeah.
Even though yeah, just because I didn't get the training and everything else, and even though my buddies that graduated UTI, here's a funny story. So the guys that graduated UTI, my buddies or whatever, the guys that kind of had a falling out with, it took them 6 to 8 months to get a job in the repair facility because they didn't have the training, they didn't have the in shop experience. So a shop would rather take somebody that doesn't have any experience like myself and pull them in than somebody that's a UTI graduate that expects a certain price to start,
Yeah.
and they don't have they may have more formal education, but it's the day to day stuff, racking the cars
Yeah.
to it's the shop environment. There's more to it than what they teach you at school. So it took them a while to get a job, and by this time I'm already at the dealership. So, but I still felt behind. So that was just to back up on that. So yeah, I felt behind, and then so I was like, yes, I get to take advantage of this training and get to learn about the Lexus vehicles and everything. I'm a Toyota guy. My parents both drive Lexuses and stuff, and and at that time there was a there there was it's not a freeze, I should say. They stopped sending the technicians to training due to the price of the education at that time. They're putting it on hold is a better way to say it. They're putting it on hold for that year, right? And and I don't know the details more on that. Just that it was put on hold, and so you know I was what I was really looking forward to on the training and everything, and feeling getting to where I wanted to be. I wasn't going to get it, and I didn't know if the next year it was going to be there. So I ended up, I was the apprentice. I got moved into a flat rate technician, and then I was there for about 2 years, and then eventually I had an apprentice under myself and stuff too. So I got to train a little bit and everything, but again, I wasn't doing. These are Lexus vehicles. You're doing alternators and brakes and struts and
So
stuff like that.
you'd taken the job hoping to get some on the job training, which you sounds like you got, but
Yeah,
you've always had a hunger for like knowledge, right? Of actually how things work and not just taking a part off or putting a part on. And you weren't getting that on, you're saying, at Toyota because A, they didn't send you to training, and B, because the cars didn't break a whole lot. So
exactly. And then the shop foreman is just funny. I mean, he walked, it's funny looking back now, but he'd walk around with his white shirt, but he was never dirty. I was like, man, you're never dirty. Do you touch cars? But he wouldn't offer any assistance or anything else. I mean, it was really, I learned from my mentor, the guy that I apprenticed under at that time. But again, I mean, there's so much, just the fundamentals of how things work, right?
yeah.
And I wanted more, and I wanted more, and I wanted more, and I didn't get it. So at that time, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna leave the dealership, and I quit the other job because 7 days a week at doing that for so long, that really started playing a toll on me. Uh, and I was 21 years old at this time and stuff. So I ended up leaving the dealership, and I went to a little tiny shop. It's a guy that had 2 bays, kind of like in his backyard and everything, and he offered me a guarantee, and the guarantee was more than I was making at the dealer and stuff. And I learned quite a bit and stuff there, and essentially he wanted me to end up buying the place within like 5 years and stuff, so he could retire and everything. And I saw good opportunity in that, and it was good, and it went good for about 6 months. And then the work just started drying up. And when it's a 2 bay shop and the work, when the work starts drying up, there wasn't anything coming in. So, you know, and I'm not one, I don't like job hopping, but I had to do what was best for me at that time. So I ended up leaving, and I went to an independent company, a locally owned company here at that time. And they had, I think, seven shop locations here in town. So I applied, I got hired. They said, every ASE certification will be a mandatory raise. We will send you to any of the local training. You just have to show up, and I was like, sweet, right on.
Yeah.
That's what awesome, good. There's room for advancement, and I can really grow and everything else. And so I started there, and man, going from, yes, I was in the independent, but I wasn't a tech. And, I was at the dealer, and man, I thought I was awesome at pulling plastics. I was the best plastic puller. You know what I mean? Like, you think you're good at something, and then you start working on all makes and models, and it's like, and I'm seeing these guys, flagging 18, 28 hours a day and stuff, and upper control and bushings on like the S10s, not even pulling the wheels. I mean, just these tricks and stuff, and I'm like, God damn. I mean, I did not know that this world existed. So, I mean, I was slow, and there was a couple guys there, and they're both named George, and they took me under their wing, and one was an awesome drivability guy, and one was, he was just a banger. And so I learned how to, beat the clock and start making some money, and made some real good friendships at that time. And our location was the number one location out of the other locations, and we were just killing it.
And
And just as a whole team.
what an awesome opportunity for mentorship to have two so strong in such different ways, right? A strong diagnostic guy and then a strong re guy. I mean, you don't normally get that, right? You tend to get a lot of shops where there might be one really strong diag guy and 5 or 6 really strong, re guys. And really strong, I'll do air quotes because there can be some hacking going on, right? But I mean, you lucked out there for sure. I mean, that's what a lot of people would really like, is to be a smaller size location, but still get that mix of both. And especially, like you said, when you're doing all makes and models on especially Diag or anything else for that matter, but the Diag especially, you just have to have a good fundamental base, right? You have to have that. You have to be able to look at what they have in common and not what makes them different. If you look at what makes them different, you get all frazzled. If you look at what they got in common, it helps.
Exactly.
So,
It's less over. It's less overwhelming when you look at what's different, not, or what's the same and what's not different, and BMW, same kind of thing. But having both those guys, man, that was I was really blessed, and they really took, they both took me under their wing, and so I had the best of both worlds. And at that time, I just started, any training that came up, and sometimes it was 3 nights a week, or 4 nights a week, or 6 times a month, or whatever. I was there. All I had to do was show up. The company paid for it, so I just had to show up and go into these classes. I'll tell you, I mean, when I first started going, that 99% of the stuff is over my head. I'm just like, man, I'm missing a bunch of the fundamentals, you know, electricity, and the diagnostic approach and stuff like that. But I just kept going. I just kept going and kept going. And then soon it was, 50% of it was over my head.
Yep.
And then, 25% was over my head. And then, then I started, the more I went and the more training I got and everything, now it became, I got this. I really started to understand. And not just that, I started investing in myself with scan tools and scopes and stuff like that. But putting it into practice. It's one thing to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
Or see a screenshot of the scope capture. Well, half the battle, how'd you get that scope capture? Yeah. It's like, how'd you set that scope up? Like, they make it look so easy. You just plug in right here and you just do this, and here you have this. And it's like, depends on the tool you have, but it's not, you have to you have to know a little bit more and how to set it up. So I started putting it into practice and staying late, after work and learning these tools and learning new techniques, checking the amperage on a fuel pump was like my first like lightning, the light went off and I'm like, man, this is cool. And you can see the commutator bars and you can see the health of that pump by making one simple connection, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it just blew my mind. I was like, wow,
You think about
and
how many
I didn't really,
times that test, would have saved you hours, right? Of being able to, or an intermittent thing, you could have just done that test and eliminated or proved it, right? But that's the whole thing. We're just trying to eliminate or prove. If you just had that one test, yeah, I get it, man. And the scope thing, it's still, we joke because I'm not a huge scope guy. I don't get enough opportunity to use it. But I'll talk to my friend and he'd be like, "You wouldn't believe how hard it is." He said, "I had to move it around to the fluorescent lights weren't screwing up with the scope." He's got certain lighting in the shop. It changes how the scope looks, the pattern looks. He says it'll drive you crazy. You go down a rabbit hole. But, hats off to those
oh, and it
guys.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I actually had a buddy reach out to me the other day and with a scope capture and stuff, and he's like, "Man, what the hell?" I was like, that looks like you're picking up some noise, man. You know what I mean? He's like, and sure enough, he went outside the shop and stuff, and yeah, he was picking up noise, and he could have been going down a rabbit hole because he was scoping a fuel pump at that time. He's like, this does, and there was extra hash, and it just didn't look clean, and it didn't look like a normal fuel pump, even a bad waveform. And so yeah, and if you overanalyze it too much, you can definitely be going down the rabbit hole on that. So and so yeah, I started learning the scope. I started learning what to look for on the scan tools. I just started attending training, man, and slowly. So I ended up leaving that location. I still stayed within the same company, but I moved location. I ended up buying a house over on the other side of town, and went. I got transferred to the location that was closer to my home, and man, I walk in there the first day, and I'm dropping off my toolbox, and I show up and stuff, and the camaraderie and everything that I had over at the other shop, I thought it was just going to be the same thing, right? And I walk into this shop, and these guys are hating hard, and I don't know what the deal was, but they did not. It's funny to laugh about it now because they're all buddies of mine and stuff now, but they didn't like me because I came in and they're all smokers, so they'd be in the back, smoking and stuff, and I just stood right up in the front or whatever as the service riders came out, and I'm telling you, Jeff, 9 out of 10 cars, it's oil change, oil change, oil change. I'm taking it. They're handing it to me because they don't want to go chasing down these other guys. They don't want the oil changes, so I'm like, give it to me. I don't care, whatever.
I need to make that money.
And yeah, exactly. But I started out flagging them, and here I'm the new guy at that location, and I out flagged them, and so now they're pissed, and it's like, half my flagged hours are point 0.3, point 0.4 oil changes and stuff. So while they're over here doing motors and heads and transmissions and everything else, and so now they really hating me. And I constantly had to prove myself and everything else, and slowly those guys started. And again, there was like 3 drivability guys when I showed up there, so there was no chance for me to. There was no mentorship there. First of all,
Yeah.
second of all, I wasn't getting the diagnostic work, which is fun. I mean, I was still learning, and I was just going to classes and stuff, and at this time is when I first invested into a scan tool and stuff. I was using my other mentors at the other locations, their scopes and their scan tools and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so I started investing in myself, and slowly those guys, a couple got fired, a couple left and stuff, and then when the last guy got let go, my boss was like, do we need to hire a drivability guy, or do you think you have this? And talk about getting thrown to the wolves, because I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready, but let's do it. And at that time, I learned a lot on my own, but I continued to go to training, and around that time is when I came in contact, but when I came across Scanner Danner, and man, that right there, Paul Danner, that I just started watching his videos. I mean, every single one. I mean, every single one, Jeff, and that completely changed everything.
Yep.
Everything that changed my whole career right there is his videos. Just he gave me more than any of the classroom training that I attended and stuff. And granted, I didn't get the formal training, the UTI and everything else, but uh, just the basic understanding. And
Because you've been exposed to more training than maybe what a lot of people in the industry starting out got, right? In terms of you got into a place that had a culture where they wanted you to take it and they were rewarding you for taking it. But yet, I've always said this about Paul. He has a way of, and again, we talk about it, it's because he's an actual educator, right? He's an actual real teacher, not just, and I mean no disrespect, he's not just a tech teaching a class. He's,
exactly.
He's a teacher with 20 years experience. So he has a method of getting you to understand the subject matter in such an efficient way that it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Like he hates it. We always talk about him, but I mean, he'll never, ever, ever know how much of an effect he's had on so many of us, right? And it's just been because he's been able to do that. He's been able to take things that you might have sat through the class and you got the concept of what they were teaching, but you didn't implement it, or it seemed like it was too much to implement. And he just goes at a pace where it's like he puts it into a really simple format. And then he doesn't even give you the option of, do you want to implement it or not? Before you know it, he's using it. He's doing it in front of you, but walking you through. It's just I can't describe it. I'm not doing it justice, but the way he teaches has helped out so many of us. And he's just a gift. He's a gift that keeps on giving. So, yeah.
And he is. And I knew about, I watched stuff on YouTube and everything, but I didn't realize that YouTube could really be educational, that I wasn't finding, you got the Scotty Kilmers and everything like that. And it's like, I'm definitely not watching this load, I'm not doing this. So it took a little bit of searching and everything else. But when I finally came across them and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm a visual learner. So, he's talking about the circuit, let's say a three-wire sensor and, talking about the circuit. Oh, man, now I understand a three-wire sensor. Now let's go implement it, and he's showing right there. And it's like, and I got a car in my bay. I'm like, I'm doing the same. I'm following along as he's doing it. And, that muscle memory, just, building that foundation on not just watching it to be watching it, but, putting it to use and putting it to practice. So that right there, I mean, I thought he was an awesome guy. He really hit home on how he educates, at least for myself and everything else, and so many other people. And I know that. But to visually see it and to put it into use and everything else, slowly, I was with this company for 13 years. And, then my name started building within the company as far as, with the other, at this time, now we have 12 locations for this company and send it to Cody. And, these problem vehicles and stuff. And I was proud to feel that, man, I've, from somebody that felt like he was so far behind, I feel like I'm getting to where I want to be. And I say that, and I still feel that I'm not where I want to be. but I feel I've definitely progressed, and I've built a name for myself within the community and stuff. And I like the problem cars, but being flat rate, those problem cars and spending, hours and everything else on it. And like, you've spoken multiple podcasts, man, it wasn't jiving.
Yeah.
I would get these problem cars sent from other shops that, they've spent, however long that they spent on it, and they just throw their hands up in the air, send it to Cody. Okay, Cody, here's your hour, figure it out. And, there's 10 things that have been replaced, and there's this and there's that. And, so now you just threw more variables in it because, you've caused more issues. I guarantee it. They always do.
Yep.
Here's your hour. Here's your hour for this network diagnostics. And it's like, whoa, man, it's got 12 codes in the system. Here's your hour. And this company didn't see, they thought everything was done in an hour. Now, if it was an ABS light and a check engine light, okay, that's two separate fees. But if it's a check engine light and they haven't they haven't had it looked at in 6 years and it's got 12 codes and it's all separate systems and stuff, it's an hour.
Yeah. That's not fair.
No, and I tried to explain to them, especially after going to training and stuff, because I would also take the management training and everything, and tried to inform them as much as I could, on the things that I was learning as far as, we really need to be charging differently than this, and it really should be kind of a tiered system. Some of these vehicles that have been neglected for 6 years and now they have to pass emissions. Why are as a shop and as a technician, why are we getting punished kind of for it, and we're getting an hour, why this guy over here is 45 minutes hanging shocks and struts and making 3 hours, and he doesn't have to invest in the scan tools, the knowledge. He doesn't, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to talk crap about that, because we need those guys, and I was that guy. But the more jobs I took on for the drivability and stuff, man, I really need to focus. It's like, don't talk to me at this time. Like, man, once I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone, and getting pulled away to like, here, knock out this weight or oil change, that would irk the crap out of me, man.
Yep.
It would irk me hard.
Yeah. Because it blows it's only you're gone 18 minutes and you come back to it, but it's at least 18 more before you get back into the flow of where you were on that job, right? Of whether it's like, did I check that 3-wire sensor? Did I check, did I load the ground? All that kind of stuff. You got to go back and think, did I do it or not? Because they say how we should be like, you see guys and they write little notes or they put little stars on the, we'd all trace the wiring diagram. We all say, write down a little note here. Yes, it's good or not. But some of us don't do that, right? It's all up here as we're doing it. If you get pulled away to do a jerked around oil change and then you have to come back, it's costing you more than the 3/10 you made. You just lost on your efficiency on the next job, easily at least 3/10, whatever time. So stop doing that, guys. Please just
exactly. It messes with your flow and everything else. And when I feel that I'm on the right track to something, man, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Like, just leave me the hell alone, man, because I want to get this. I want to get this figured out. Like, I'm close and I can feel it. And then when you mess with my flow or my jive or whatever, it's like, man, that just, it kills me. And in the shop that I worked at, it was a volume shop. We were doing 40, 60 cars a day and stuff, and with 3-4 technicians and everything. So yes, it was a high volume shop. And in order for me to still have a decent paychecks, I still had to do those jobs, in order to get paid. And so I had long conversations and stuff with my boss and with the company, and with, like I said, it was a local owned company, and the CEO and everything. Like, look, we really need to try to, charge differently within the company. And if I'm getting a car that has, all these parts thrown at it from one of your other stores and stuff, it needs, kind of like Paul's, mentioned with his brother, it needs to be like a $500 minimum for us to look at it. And then, if it's a blown fuse, something simple or whatever, you're obviously not getting charged that, but there should be an upfront, compensation for the technician and for the shop in general to make it worth everybody's while. Right. And they didn't, they were in the process of making some changes, and then we ended up getting bought out by a larger corporation. So now, where I did feel that I had a voice and some things were going to change. Now these guys are in New York, and there's no getting anybody on the phone. Nobody wants to listen to, I'm just a technician. I'm just who's this guy, and not meaning that my name means anything, but I'm just saying that, like, we had all the techs and all the managers and stuff had a voice before. We could mention something to the CEO, and some actions would be implemented. But now, now with the bigger, company coming in, that's not the case, So, and, so to go back on that, it's, that was some of my frustrations and stuff. And I really, getting older, I didn't want to, I was the banger, and I was hard on my body for the 13 years that I was with this shop, because I was there I'm just, I like to work.
You're for sure. Yep.
Yeah. So, I'd be there at, I had keys to the shop. So I'd be there at 5:00 in the morning. If there was work and everything, I was there at 5:00 in the morning to open up the shop, to start working and stuff. I'd stay till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And that was just that was a night, that was a daily thing. And that cost me, one relationship with my daughter's mom and stuff. And rightfully so. And, but when I'm the provider for the household and everything else, it needed to be done, honestly. And yes, I made really good money, but if you look at the time spent there, as far as actual hours away from the family and everything else, it didn't add up to that much money.
Yeah.
A decent
A
technician
lot of that
should
too,
be able to. Oh, go ahead.
a lot of that too, what I always found is it's when you're getting a heavy diag mix into your schedule, we'll say, it's always like you've got a number that we want to chase, right, for a paycheck. That's cool. But when you're in that heavy diag, there was so many nights I was staying there after 5, 6 at night, not even necessarily on a diag job, but it was because I'd been on a diag job that morning that, it didn't, I might have made straight time on it or at best or whatever. I lost an hour here or there. So you're going to bang out that gravy rack and pinion or, strut job or brake job or, I'd stay late and put 3 sets of tires on, because it was like they were sitting there and I could get that done and I could make up for the diag work. Right. And it did it. Yeah. I was the same way. I'd go in at 7. I'd get home 8 o'clock at night, 7:30, stressed, grouchy, like angry. That's where I learned to rant about this stuff was before I ever had a Facebook account was I'd be ranting to my ex about, oh, you wouldn't believe what I had to do today. And it was just, yeah, it was tough. So, I mean, the guys that, you know, always had that mix, right? It was either you just accepted it and you made less hours, or if you wanted to chase that, competitive of being the number one in the shop or in the top 5 or whatever, you had to put in the extra hours to offset the diag work. And I never thought that was fair, and it does come with an expense. So,
Yep, and 100%. That's exactly what would happen, and it would be me showing up early in the morning because I knew parts showed up when I was leaving. The night before, and I'm throwing cats on this car. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, so I can make 6 hours, let's say, before 8 o'clock in the morning, right after we open, and then I can get back to those cars that are kicking my ass as far as those heavier diags and stuff that I'm really not making much money off of. And again, and I liked it because it was a challenge. I learned a lot through those challenges. But learned a lot, and I'm continuing to learn a lot. But that being said, it played a huge role, and I lost a lot of time with family, with my daughter, and 13 years, I'll tell you what, man. I mean, 13 years went by real damn quick,
oh,
and you don't realize like how long you're doing something, and you're just so repetitive on it and everything that you just think that that's how it should be, right? And I didn't realize that there's actually shops where guys can make, good technicians can make 6 figures, and they can actually work the allotted
yeah,
hours. I'm like, no way. Until meeting Lucas Underwood and all these other shop owners and stuff, after going to Super Saturday, and I'm like, and ASTE, but Super Saturday is what really set it off. And that's where I got to meet Scanner Danner and Paul and stuff. And man, I came back from Super Saturday all on my own dime. The shop didn't think that was out of state training was quote unquote needed,
yeah,
because we get local training, not realizing that the local training is great, but there's more out there, right? Brandon Steckler is not bringing his class here to Tucson, and for example,
yeah,
so that's where getting out of town and going to these trainings. And I took some management trainings, and I took some Brandon's class, and man, I came back from this, and after meeting some other shop owners and stuff like that, I'm like, man, there is I want to make my shop better.
mm-hmm.
I want us to be able to send, not necessarily me, but send a couple guys every year to Super Saturday. And then I hear about Vision and then ASTE. And it's like, man, there's all this training out there that I didn't even know existed until, Facebook groups and everything. And I'm like, man, I want to go to this all. I came back and let's change this company. Let's training is where it's at. Now, mind you, my shop did pay for training, like I said, locally, right? And out of the 12 locations, we have there's 14 locations with that company now. Out of the 14 locations, because I go to all the trainings. Jeff, guess how many technicians take advantage of the training?
I'm going to say less than 10%.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 guys in there that are in there, the same 4 or 5 guys at every single
Yeah.
class, and they're the ones that are. And the guys I'm referring to are no longer with that company, and they're good buddies of mine because, man, we all value the training and the education and everything else. Uh, the, Everybody else just had to show up. They wouldn't even show up, Jeff. So that was and then trying to convince the company to invest into training to send guys out of state. I get it as a business.
It's a lot of
The
money.
guys aren't even taking, yeah, the guys aren't even taking advantage of the local training, let alone sending them out of town.
Yeah.
So, I felt that I was just spinning my wheels. We got bought out, like I said. So I ended up leaving there, and I went to another shop, and this was I spent 13 years at the shop I just mentioned, and I went to another shop, and I had to sit down with him, and I used to work with him. He used to work for the previous company, and I asked for a guarantee. I asked, there's a bunch of things I asked because here's the thing, and I want guys to understand, like, if you're looking for a shop, it's not just you being interviewed.
Yes.
You need to also be interviewing the shop. It goes both ways. It's not just sitting there answering the questions that they ask you. You need to be asking questions and stuff too. Like, do you guys pay for education? How do you advance within this company? What's the 5-year plan? These are questions that need to be asked,
Yep.
And this is all stuff I learned later on, right? So with that company, I was like, look, it's all the way across town. I would like a guarantee, and this guarantee that I suggested that I would that I'd be comfortable with was almost half than what I was making with the previous shop, but just a guarantee. And I knew that I was going to kill it. Just something to keep me from, where I still have a paycheck as I build the clientele, where people realize that I'm over here and stuff now, and to get acclimated to how they do business over here.
Sure.
Jeff, this was the beginning. I started 2020, right? And first couple months were okay. It was definitely a pay cut. I couldn't break 30 hours.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I went from doing 70, 80 hours a week. Now, granted, I wasn't working like I was before, as far as the early mornings and late nights and stuff. So I was like, maybe that's why. But and then just a couple months into 2020, obviously COVID happens. Now, if I didn't ask for that guarantee, and mind you, I was the only technician in that shop that had a guarantee, I don't know how I would have survived. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have made $30,000 that year, Jeff. So I don't know how these other guys made it, because business just came to a standstill. Yes, we still had some work, but nothing like we do now, right?
When you make a good statement when you say, I don't know how guys made it. And the reality is a lot of guys didn't make it. And that's where there was we're seeing the shortage now because there was a mass exodus of qualified people that just when the dealership slowed down, when the shops slowed down, didn't shut down, but slowed, everybody went and said, you know what, now is the time. Because you know how we all are. A lot of us are always like, we're always thinking, I only want to do this 5 more years and I want to do something else, right? It's killing me. I can get another career. When that happened, that's when a lot of people just went, there's my sign from, the powers that be, go make that next step in life. And whether it was like we just talked about, and you've heard me talk about it, my friend, there was a mass exodus in my area. People went and worked at a Goodyear plant. You know what I mean? Some of them went to fix the machinery. Some just took jobs building the tires because it was a steady paycheck, right? They needed people. And it's it's such a frustrating thing because I can remember seeing a post pop up in the Facebook group of the lady that had the dealership, and it was literally like her one tech posted how they had been guaranteed through the COVID, and then she retracted on the guarantee, cut their wages, did everything she could do, and it blew up. It was all over Facebook and it was all over Reddit and everything else until she was like, I'm sure to this day it still had a big effect on her dealership because it started to expose what a lot of these people were really like that we work for in this industry. And that's I'm not knocking, owners. I'm talking about more dealers dealer owners and what they could, because when the time when they needed it the most, right? Business people got paranoid, stayed home, didn't bring their car in. I mean, who needs an oil change if the car's parked in the driveway? Doesn't, right?
Yeah,
All of a sudden,
100%.
those people, when you needed them the most to look after you till it was over or we could move around again, they didn't. They just said, "Oh, you're costing us too much here. I'm taking your guarantee away." It's no
Yeah,
wonder thousands of them went to a completely different line of work. So,
yeah. 100, well, and that 100%, and that's kind of where I was at as far as I was thankful that I was smart enough to just ask for a guarantee and not just take any job that came my way. I didn't go out looking for this job. They came to me, and I was like, okay, these are kind of the guidelines that I would need, because now I'm driving 45 minutes one direction across town.
mhm.
So in order for me to instead of 5 minutes to work, I'm going 45 minutes more time away from the family and everything. But I was hoping to not be there at 5 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night and actually work my hours. Plus, it was weekends off, so I was like, oh yeah, man, that's huge.
Yep.
Because I was working 6 days a week for 7 years of that
Yeah.
at the other company. So so I took it, and man, like I said, I was thankful that I had it, but there was some other promises and everything else. I didn't want to go backwards. The shop foreman was um, going to retire. But again, COVID kind of changed everything.
Mhm.
So the foreman was going to retire, and I was going to take over the foreman position. Well, now COVID's here, and he's concerned too, and he's like, yeah, I'm not, I'm staying where I'm at, kind
Yep.
of thing. So I kind of felt that I went backwards in a sense, and just COVID was just a weird time. During that time, the year before in 2019, I ended up paying off my house and everything. And so 2020, we were going to do a big remodel on the house. And so I took out a loan on the house to do a remodel. Then obviously COVID happened. And my wife at the time, she's like, I don't want anybody in this house.
Yeah.
She really got freaked out about it.
Right.
And rightfully so. There was so much
Yeah.
unknown at that time, right? But coming towards the end of the 2020, and I was like, man, if I can survive off of half of what I was making before, right? Because I don't live outside my means, and I save, and uh, being flat rate, you really have to know, yeah, it's take the good with the bad, but you need to save for they're not always steady paychecks
Nope.
and stuff. So that being said, I had some money in the bank and stuff that we were going to use on the house, and I was like, man, you know what? I can go. I'm going to give it 1 year. I want to go mobile, start my own diagnostic and programming company. I'm tired of lifting transmissions, doing motors and everything
Yeah.
else. And my body's just breaking down. I spent 13 years breaking it down and working my ass off,
Yep.
that I was like, man, I just want to focus on what I truly love. And so I did that. So I was like, you know what, January 1st, 2021, I'm going mobile. And I did. And I didn't burn any bridges. I have never burned a bridge at any shop that I've ever worked or anything
Right.
else. And every shop that I have worked at, I service them.
Mhm.
I do their programming, and I'll get called in for diagnostics and stuff. And so that's really helped me out. You know, and it helped me build my name within the company or within the locally here
Yep.
in Tucson before going mobile. So when I did go mobile and people got word and stuff, I really didn't have to do a lot of advertisement till I was, I had full days booked,
That's awesome.
and yeah, so it's been awesome, and I wouldn't change it, but I'm gonna mention this real quick, and for how much I have issues, or I've had issues, and just like other people that have been on your podcast and stuff, as far as with the industry and shops, false promises or whatever, what have you,
Yeah.
and so I go mobile, and you know it's kind of like changing the industry podcast, man. You get psyched up. It's like, man, I'm going to change, I want to help out all these shops, and I want to change the industry.
Yeah.
I want to help, I'm here to help. Here to service them and make all these shops better. Rising tide raise all ships,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Man, here's the thing. these shops don't want the help. Like you can literally give them free training and they are not going to take
Nope.
advantage of it. I mean, they for so so what I wanted to say about that is like going mobile. It's really so I do webinars and some teaching and stuff for ATG, and our webinars are $39, right? $39. So I'll go in because every single shop, where's training? Where's some good training? So I go in with the flyers and everything else, Jeff. I go to shops out of my way that I'm not even scheduled at to drop off flyers because they've mentioned training. They want training.
Yeah.
And from that to WTI to any kind of training I know of. And I have never seen any of these shops in any one of the ATG webinars. $39. And that's just one example of I try to go out of my way to help change the industry, to help these shops better themselves. To essentially, I want to put myself out of business.
Yeah.
If I'm not getting called in for the blown fuses, I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a funny thing, right? And I'm not sure, because I was going to ask you about that. Not how do we do it, but I mean, I sensed a change in you as I've known you, where at first I saw that attitude of I really want to, I want to bring up everybody's ability. That was the same as me. I wanted to see the average technician get better. I didn't want to see the same crazy questions get asked. I want to be able to, when somebody comes and you say, okay, did you test this, X, Y, and Z? Instead of going yes or no, all we got was a blank stare, right? And it's like, so then you're okay. So you're not at that level. What level are you at? And that's when it got really scary about how a lot of people what's volt drop? What's fuel trim? Well, come on. So where do you start? And I found there's so many as I've networked with so many people that it's just like they've gone from I want to enable to I just want to charge them. And that's it.
Yep.
It's just I'm going to come to them with a business. At the end of the day, we want the customer's car to get fixed. So if I go in and fix the car for them, I'm going to charge whatever I need to charge to be profitable doing it. And I'm not going to worry that why they aren't able to do it. Because like you said, you want to eventually bring it up to where nobody needs to call you, right? Their skills come up. They don't, they know to check for the missing fuse. They know to check for the blown fuse. They actually know how to put a test light on it versus a meter, when to do it, a scope, blah, 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 blah. We could go on, but they're not doing it. So Cody, why is that they're not doing it?
Honestly, I wish I had an answer for that. I don't know.
Scared to charge the customer?
I think a lot of that has to do with it, and scared to charge the customer, and they think let's just say a diagnostic charge is, if shops are charging $130, they still have that mentality like my old shop where everything's covered under that $149 or $139 that 1 hour diagnostic charge, and these techs, especially being flat rate, if they're spending over an hour on it and they don't even have an idea.
Yep.
What direction to go, they're, honestly, they're being smarter than me, because they're like, oh, I'm going to move on to these shocks and struts and make some money. And I'm over here like, I'm going to figure it out 3 days later and I didn't get paid shit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, but then they call in somebody like myself that, okay, I do charge for every hour that I'm there, to figure it out. And, I'm more expensive to even come through the door than to have your technician figure it out. And it's not that I have the special tools or anything else. I'm walking around with a meter, a test light, and a couple back piercing probes and stuff, and that's how I fix 90% of these cars. Yeah. It's not with the fancy scopes. Now my scope gets pulled out if it's now. Mobile is like flat rate on steroids. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it is, if you can get to the conclusion with the least amount of tools, and I am a scope guy, but I'm not breaking out my Pico scope for a 3-wire sensor like I used to. I'm not, there's a lot of things that when I was in a shop and I had my scope cart and everything else, I wanted to scope all things and known good waveform library and this and that. I want to be in and out. And the faster I can get in and out when I have anywhere from 8 to 12 appointments a day, the better the business will do. But I made these appointments for all these customers. I have to get them done, and it only takes one thing to go sideways to like screw up the whole week
Yeah.
of scheduling.
So when we get back to when we're talking about why they're not doing it, and then I want to bring it back to the idea, because I say, okay, so some shops don't charge, and we always say, and I'm guilty of this. Shops need to charge more. They're not charging for that. They're doing free diag and blah, 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 blah. But when you come back to the reality that maybe 10% of the techs actually take training, I can understand why some advisors or some owners or some shop managers are reluctant to charge for diag, because you're not really giving the customer anything. You're just giving a round in the chamber of the parts gun, and that's not diag. Is it a
Yeah.
elimination is it can be a step in diagnosing what's wrong with the car, but that's not diag. Throwing a dart and hitting a bullseye is still not diag. It's just you're good at throwing darts.
Right.
So
Yeah, and that could be a big reason behind it, because the shops don't see the value in the diagnostics, because essentially the tech's going in there and it's got a P0171, and he goes to Identifix and he's like, it needs a mass airflow sensor.
yeah,
And he spent 5 minutes on the car, and he didn't even run the vehicle to see the grams per second on that mass airflow sensor. Or, there was no value. There's nothing written from the technician as far as, okay, this is what I checked. I checked fuel trims at base idle. I also checked fuel trims at 2,500 RPM. I went and did a volumetric efficiency. I did X, Y, and Z to show value for that what we're charging. They're literally. No, I'm not knocking Identifix. I use it, but I don't use it for the hits. I use it because there's certain things in Identifix that are not in, or harder to find than All Data or Mitchell or anything else. So I'm not knocking any company or Identifix, but it can be a great tool or it can be a horrible tool. It's all about how you use it. And a lot of these guys that the shops do provide Identifix, they're using it 100% incorrect.
Yeah.
They're not even doing the 6-step process or whatever to come up with that conclusion for that code. They're just like, man, 376 hits for mass airflow sensor for P0171. Yeah. And I come in and I plug in a vacuum line.
Yeah.
That's where it's, they're not showing that value. They're not written up. It's not like being at the dealership where you have the T1 codes and the T2 code. I mean, you had to write novels of everything you did at the dealer, and that sometimes that took longer than doing the repair.
All the time. Yeah.
So at the independents, that how very few shops here in town are doing DBIs. Even fewer shops are the technicians writing down why they need X, Y, and Z and what tests were performed. If they're not telling me that, I wouldn't be charging diagnostics either, probably, because I'd be like, what's the value in that? I'm stealing the customer's money, and 100% you are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it boils
down to. And it's too bad, because I mean, like you've heard me say all for years, I genuinely think most of the techs out there want to do well. They want to do better. They want to improve. But I feel like we all reach a point where it's like, you know what? I can't eat my pride. I can't pay my bills with my pride. If I'm not going to get compensated for the time that I put in it. And I don't need every minute. But I mean, I need a lot closer than the way it used to be. And if I'm going to work on an incentivized pay, if you're just going to pay me an hourly wage that we both agree on is good, and I show up and I fix cars, I'm a happy bear. I'm good. Yeah. It's just, I work within that means, and it's good. But these techs that are in that incentivized thing, and it's like you get handed a check engine light ticket. I feel for them, because I believe that most of them want to do this better. You see the look on their face when they're frustrated and they don't know something, and they're like, what do I do? I mean, it's a $500 mass airflow sensor. I talked about a Mazda I had a couple months where it had a mass airflow code and a bunch of codes and everything. It wouldn't even run. It would barely run. Transmission would shift funny, ABS. It ended up being 5-volt was shorted in the harness underneath the trunk from water. So it was killing. I had no 5 volts to my math. If you'd have gotten Identifix, there's even a Mazda bulletin that tells you how common the mass airflow is to fail. It was like 100 hits for the mass airflow was the next for a 101, and the symptom, not just the code, but the 101. and I said to the customer, because he was a little perturbed that we had like 2 hours into finding it, he's like, oh, and I'm like, mister, if you'd have gone to the dealer, the first thing they would have jammed in this thing would have been a mass airflow, because I guarantee they put 3 in this week, right? They have it on the shelf. That's how common it is, right? Because my guy phoned over and said, what's a dealer mass cost? Oh, $600. Okay, I don't want to do that. So when these people are seeing the price of this, and that's assuming they're using OE parts, you know how it's even worse when we get another variable when they go and buy, a
Yep.
Blue Streak or a Dorman or a Standard or whatever. Not knocking Dorman. Aftermarket part.
I am.
It adds another variable though, right? When you get called in because you're like,
100%.
where's the OE part? Oh, it's in the trash can. Okay, well, I now need to get back to the baseline. I need that OE math to see what was it doing. Or you go and fix like your vacuum leak or like you said or something else, and then your math is screwed because it's got a $100 math in there instead of the $500 one it's supposed to have. So that's where I feel like most of us want to do better, but we're just not. I know, because I've said it for years, I'm not going to donate my time anymore for the shop to do better. I'll donate my time to make myself better, but I'm not going to make myself better at the expense of pay. I just, it goes against my core value. I feel like if I can make money doing something else, then I'm going to do that until you value what it is I can do. That's as simple as that. And but here we are. We don't have 10% of people that are only 10% go to training. Like it just, we've got to break that. Otherwise it's going to be a really dark day. You know what I mean?
And okay, so let me ask you, how do we change that? I mean, and from all the podcasts and listening to, changing the industry and stuff. And now I feel that, me going mobile, when I first went mobile, like I said, I was out to change the industry, and I wanted to lift all the shops. And, then it becomes, like you said, I'm here to make my money. If a shop's replacing a module, I'm not offering to diagnose it before they replace it. Before I would take a couple quick looks and everything, just as, are they on the right track, or is it something stupid that they're completely missing? Me questioning shops, or not questioning shops, I shouldn't say that because I didn't question them, but me asking questions to the shop, like, hey, why are you replacing the module? Would you like me to take a look at it, just to kind of confirm and everything? I offended them. I offended 90% of shops by asking that. No, how dare you? It needs a computer.
My tech
okay,
says.
man. My tech said, and awesome. So now I don't offer that to shops. If if they're replacing a module, I show up, I program that module.
Yep.
Jeff, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't need the module.
No.
And that was a real hard pill to swallow at first, because I hate charging shops when it doesn't fix it. But here's the thing, to be made to feel stupid for kind of, quote unquote, questioning them, or hey, can I help you in a sense? They didn't want the help. Now they're stuck with a $700 module, the programming charge. And, if they do want me to look at it now, I'm not doing it the same day. It's scheduled out, and I'm, 3-4 days behind on that, scheduled out. So, from wanting to help these shops and grow them and everything else, they've left a bitter taste in my mouth, because of they don't want the help. They don't want the help for the training. Every single one of them asked me, hey, do you know any good technicians? I do, but
that's the silver bullet, right? Is I need a different tech. I don't want to improve the one. I need a different tech.
Why would I send them your direction? When I go to 80% of the shops here in town, why would I send them your direction when I could send them to Bill over there, and Bill's going to take care of these guys, and he's going to send them to training. He's going to take them out of town to go to training. Why send them your direction?
Yeah.
And so my and like I said, it's going mobile has kind of made me jaded in a sense, because you realize that you think that there's some good shops out there, and there are. Don't get me wrong, there are, man. There are the Dutches and the Lucas and Davids and, man, but those good shops, they're like 0.01%. they're
Yeah.
not they're not on every
Yeah.
street corner,
So
man. Just like the good
no.
technicians are not on every street corner.
So when you ask me how we fix this, here's where I think we fix it, or how we start anyway. And I'll go with this from two ways. So if you're in a shop and say you all are whatever senior technicians within the shop, right? You've got 10 years experience. If you've got somebody that is got an aptitude like you had, you have to either put them on just a straight hourly wage that's competitive for what they could have been making, hanging parts, banging ball joints, putting control arms in, putting struts in, putting tires on, brakes on, whatever, so that it's very lucrative. So it's at least as lucrative as that. And then you say, okay, you could be making me money doing this, but you're very good at this. So we're going to have you do that, which is drivability, electrical programming, all that kind of stuff. If you can't do it where you can give them a guarantee, then like you said, for every ASE that you have, for every diagnostic classification that you get, that's got to come with more money per hour, because that's the only way I see where a tech can go. Let's easy round numbers. We're all paid $30 an hour. I bang out 12 hours. Cody makes 8 doing drivability. I'm still 50% better than Cody at day's end. But now if I pay Cody 50% more per hourly wage per hour, and Cody makes 8 and he makes 12 at his other wage, $30. So you're now at 45. He's at 30. At the end of the day, you go home with more money than him. Do you know what I mean? Because it's incentivized. Yep. That's true incentivized for actually developing knowledge and a skill set. So people that are listening that are shop owners or whatever, you got to start with doing that, because otherwise the young people, just like I witnessed for 20 years, are not going to go into the challenging, hard cars, the nightmare cars, the problem cars, if it means they have to lose, or if it means that on the tally sheet that goes up at the end of the week where everybody's hours are hanging there, if they're going to be at the bottom of that, it doesn't matter whether you tell them how important they are to the shop, how important they are to the business. You have to show them that they're important. And unfortunately, that comes with money too. So that's one way. The next thing is, and this will be another unpopular thing, training has to be mandatory. If you don't want to attend, that's fine. You don't want to attend. I get it. Some guys don't want to do diag, don't want to do drivability. Cool. All right. You don't want to do it. That's fine. But I cannot then, in good conscience, maybe bonus you out the way that I bonus the guys that will take training, right? Or maybe, like somebody made a good point, maybe for every hour that they take in training, that's paid time off. Put it on their holiday, nice. Pile. Do that. Do something, because at the end of it, because you're always going to have people that just don't want to. I just want to hang parts, right? I'm happy with that. I like that. I'm good with my hands. Great. We need those guys. Just like you said earlier, we need them. But the people, if you want to see this technology problem get fixed in the industry, it's not going to be just with a wage or finding a different tech. That's such a stupid answer. Oh, I got guys that won't take training. I got guys that can't fix cars. Do you know another tech? Yeah, he's probably just like the ones you got. Do you want a superstar? Okay, a superstar, more and more now we're seeing shops are building them. They're not just walking around. A tech like yourself, a tech like Keith Perkins. I use Brian all the time, Brian Pollock, right? Guys like them are not walking around just out of a job, right? They are.
Yeah, no. The good techs always will have a job, and that's just it. There's, unless it's going through like the pandemic or anything else, like what you had to deal with as far as up in Canada and stuff. But that was just a weird time anyway. But the good techs, they're the good techs, if their name is if they're known within the community and everything else, like I know Tucson, and I can't speak for everywhere, but I know Tucson is the biggest little town there is. Mm-hmm. And it's, if there's a tech that's leaving, oh my gosh, the whole community knows this tech is leaving before the tech really even knows he's leaving.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, people are already on his ass. Like, and hey, you have job offers 4 or 5. There is no quitting to go fill out applications and everything else. They're on it. I've had people poach me at where their wife has showed up to my current employer and was like, "Hey, can I talk to you outside?" And trying to recruit me
Mm-hmm.
straight up at my shop, and I'm not saying that that's right or anything else, but man, that's that's what's happening out there. And I guarantee that's happening everywhere. I'm not just saying Tucson or Arizona or anything else. That's happening everywhere because these techs are not, they're not, walking down the street. They're not looking for work. You have to go search them or build them, like you just mentioned. You have
Yes.
to grow them within the company.
Yeah. And that's we have to get them, I say that we're, if they see and they have an aptitude where they're more comfortable with a scan tool in their hand, but you watch them maybe do a set of drum brakes and they're fumbling, you know what I mean? Or something like that, man, push that on them, right? Don't sit there and go, you suck because you can't do a set of drum brakes. Like, put that scan tool in their hand more and more. I talk all the time. If I'd have never walked into a dealer where they just handed me a scan tool that involved like programming with a DRB3 for a bulletin and said, this bulletin sucks, nobody wants to do it. I know you've been here a month, but here's the DRB3. Here's the instructions from the bulletin. It tells you how to run it. Go flash 10 cars. Some comes
Yep.
to me at the end of your shift. If nobody had ever given me that opportunity, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would have never learned how to navigate that tool or how to then see, okay, well, maybe it needs the update. Oh, or maybe it actually needs some diag. Cool. And I was straight time when I was started doing that. So it's always been my progression once I got into the dealership that's just what I did. I had a scan tool in hand and I was, well, even when I went to flat rate, okay, now flat rate, I'm going to start doing more steering racks. I'm going to start doing more of the, stuff that traditionally I hadn't been fast at because it paid well. And
Yeah.
the diag always didn't under warranty. But I was lucky because I had two skill sets, right? I was like you. I could hang parts, but I could also solve problems. And it was always a battle then between how do I get enough of the easy work that I can then, like by Wednesday, if I had, 30 hours in by Wednesday, great, because I was never a guy that was turning 60 consistent a week. That wasn't me. I always had seen by Wednesday, if I had 3 10-hour days, I got saddled with like 4 diags, and they were complicated, involved, pulling the carpet out, finding a splice, that kind of stuff. And then by the week, I'd close out the week with 45, 46, 40 sometimes. And I was happy with that. But the guy over there that didn't have to do them, he did 10 more racks. He walked out with 60. Yeah. And I was like, shit, I got 45. So what my service manager did at the time, which was very groundbreaking, was he then implicated, when at least when it was retail, a diagnostic rate of a time and a half. So the diagnostic rate, nice. And it paid the tech, and this was only retail, an hour and a half for, every hour he was on it. So, and that was, it could be an evap leak. It could be, I mean, it wouldn't be like a light bulb that was out, but I mean, if you had a steering rack that was, not a steering rack, wiper motor that say didn't work, right? Or the horn didn't blow and then somebody had already put a clock spring in it. Somebody already put you started it with an hour and a half just there. That's what it paid. Nice. You only got an hour time, but it paid you an hour and a half. And that was his way of trying to incentivize more people to try and do it. Unfortunately, at a dealer, when you're doing still so much under warranty, probably 60% of your work was under warranty still. So you didn't get that rate and a half, but it was still, at least I was lucky that the guys, they looked after me. So I didn't lose my butt too often on warranty diag. They looked after me. I wrote really good, long 5 and 6 page stories with all my volt drop this, splice that, ran an overlay, proved the component was good, blah, 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 and got paid. That's what you had to do. There was none of this, it only pays this or this. What you hear, Cody, how they talk now about how the guys in the dealer don't even get paid diag, right? So you bring it in and it's rolled. Yeah. I would put my tools down tomorrow and I'd walk out and that'd be the last you'd see.
Yeah.
Because
so like you were talking about that Mazda with like the mass airflow sensor, okay. And, and I'm not harping on dealer techs because I've been there, and you see their repeat failures. You see a car come in and it's kind of like on the Nissans. Oh, P010, P0101. Oh man, it needs an update. You already know in the top of your head before you even see the vehicle, before you even hook anything up. That's what you're doing. So that mass airflow sensor, damn well that the shop, the dealership would have thrown a mass airflow sensor in it.
Mhm.
Why do the checks? Why do those checks for point three? Well, that's if you're getting the point three. But if you're not even getting the point three, why are they going to go through the steps to CYA to cover their ass when they're not getting compensated correctly for it? So that's all that's going to make is just a parts thrower. That's take the dice out, roll it, tell it what it needs, and ship it.
Yeah.
And our cars getting fixed that way? Unfortunately, yeah, a lot of them are because they are pattern
Sure.
failures. But then there's the ones that those are the cars that I get now. You know what I mean? And they're all the ass kicking, and it's find the corrosion, find
Yes.
the broken wire, find the module that's bringing down the network, find now it's not that easy that the pattern failures, because the pattern failures, they're getting fixed.
Yeah. And that Mazda, the only thing that, like, because I'm, so I didn't hook a scope to that car. I stared at data a lot on it, and I'm
Yeah.
scrolling through and I'm seeing the fuel tank pressure sensor is skewed really bad. It's like 30 psi of fuel tank pressure on the evap system, and I'm like, that's
Yep.
that's a red flag. Like, that sucker should have blown apart by now. I should be hearing that. So immediately go back, unplug it, fire the car back up, runs like a brand new car. Right. Then the
Yeah.
diag is to go and actually see. But I mean, so the dealer tech wouldn't have sat there long enough and said, because it didn't have an evap fault. I don't know why. Don't care. Didn't have it. I'm just looking at data, trying to figure out, okay, I got the mass airflow unplugged and the still not drivable. It's still wonky. I'm still getting all this blah, 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 whatever. The next step the dealer tech would have thrown in would have been an ECM, $700 ECM, $500, we'd have been $1,200 into a car that wasn't fixed. So when my customer's starting to get a little cranky about, well, what's this 3 hours for, 2 hours for diag and 1 hour to put a harness in, a little $80 jumper harness that comes from here to here, just whatever. And I said to him, I said, would you want $1,200 of parts that didn't fix it? Because that would have been the reality. Exactly. He was like, how do you know that? Because I know a guy, right? Like, that's how it would have went. And that's not ripping on them, but I was just given the keys, and nobody came to ask me how much longer I was going to be. Did I have any headway? What do I call my customer? They just handed me the keys. And when I knew what was wrong, I went to them and said, hey, this is what's wrong. I'm not being bothered and pressured into, oh, we need to know. That doesn't help anybody's diagnostic process when you're trying to rush it from that rate standpoint. You got to stop doing that. You put that yourself under that kind of pressure when you're on your day-to-day going to the job, right? You put yourself on that.
Yeah.
But if somebody's working, don't do that to them,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, adding more pressure where it's already a pretty technical, and diagnostics is a thought process, and you need to follow your processes. And every time that I don't follow my process, that's when I start going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And every time I don't follow my process is usually when, okay, somebody comes up and they start talking to me. We shoot the shit for a little bit, and next I just lost my train of thought. I forgot where I was going, or I went to step 3 and I skipped step 1 and 2. And step 1 and 2 is where it was at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So doing that and everything, and asking them, or handing them a waiting oil change and stuff, that's honestly, that's how wheels get left loose. That's how things get overlooked. And obviously that's going to be worst case scenario and stuff, and diagnostics and tightening up a wheel is two different things. But in reality, it's not. I mean, it's both going to cost the company money, and having a lead guy or a diagnostic guy handing him an oil change to get a waiting oil change done when he's knee deep in a network diagnostics and he's got wires hanging everywhere. Yeah, that's probably not the time you think he needs a break.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that, like, when your tech is out there and they're 3 hours in and nobody's checked on them, right? You kind of have to know the tech, because if they are struggling, but if they're competent, like if they've proven to you before that you can give them a challenge and they can get to the bottom of it, 2 hours can go by really fast when you're in the midst of a problem, or I'm in the midst. It can go by really fast, right? So now, if it's all morning and he's still trying to figure out a misfire or something like that, that's a different thing. But if you're into something complex like that, 2 hours can go by really quick. It doesn't mean that you need to run out and start putting the pressure on them. Like, I've got to make, because that's the other thing in this industry. Too many times it's the advisor or the shop owner or the manager, whatever, says, I need a better tech. I got guys that can't solve anything. The reality is a lot of them come out there when the hour and a half is up and go, I need an answer now. Give me an answer. And you go, well, boss, the answer is it's not X, Y, and Z, but I still don't know. And he goes, well, what's the next thing it could be? Well, it's looking like it might be the ECM, but I still have to check this circuit, that circuit. I still have to do the. Okay, well, I'm going to call the customer and see if they want to do an ECM. And that's how it goes. And then the ECM doesn't fix it. And they call up Cody, and Cody comes in and he goes, well, there's not 12 volts on that wire. Like, I mean, there's 12 volts when I unplug it and I face probe it with the meter and it shows me 12 volts, but it won't light my test light. It won't flow current. And then the guy's like, my tech didn't do anything for, 3 hours and I had to call someone in. The reality is that you didn't give the tech enough time. And it sucks. I understand it. But it comes back to then when we're going to start to do these diags, we need to go back to like what Brian and Paul Danner came up with, which is that retainer. How invested is this customer going to be in getting a repaired vehicle? How are they in it for the long? I hate to say the long haul because that implies that we're going to keep it forever. But are they really, because the variables, it's got a Dorman mass airflow sensor in it. It's got a, 10 texts. Somebody's taken a fuel pump out of it and we don't know what a fuel pump in it now for a lean code, and it's still got a lean code, and now it does a different thing. There's so many more variables that have been added that we need to now check. You can't do that for an hour and a half. And I always say it, and it really perturbs some people. If the customer has spent $1,000 and didn't get it diagnosed properly or repaired, that's $1,000 that most of the top diagnostic people in the industry probably could have found it with $1,000 worth of diag time allotted. So
I would say time. Yeah, we don't know what that would cost as far as what the
final part might be.
What it would be.
Yeah,
exactly. But for time, yeah. I mean, I know plenty of guys that take on these hero cars and stuff, and they'll start at $700-800 or whatever, and that's a decent enough amount to okay, I'll take this on. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about like flooded vehicles.
Yeah.
Note to self: look to all you guys. Do not take on flooded vehicles. Nobody wants to be your hero on a flooded vehicle.
They're never ever done. They're never ever done.
No. I'm 8 months in, and we're not done yet, and we're 12 modules in. So.
Yeah, I know it's that. I think it's flood cars, and I had a lightning strike car once in my career.
Oh, those are good too.
Yeah. But going back, when I say that, when they try to say the customer won't pay for diag, if the customer will pay $1,000 for parts that didn't fix it and they're still trying to get it resolved, they most certainly would have paid $1,000 for diag. You're not selling it to them the proper way, right? Exactly. If you sell it to them $100 an hour and they think it's 10 hours, they think they're being ripped off. If you tell them their diag rate is $250 an hour and you're selling them 4 hours, okay, 4 hours to them doesn't sound like a ripoff. It's
exactly, and I think you're onto something there, Jeff. And I mean the customers. Okay, so yes, it's all about how you approach it with the customers, and selling them, let's say, a module, and time to install the module, and then the programming. Yes, it comes to $1,000. This will take care of your issue. Okay, now it doesn't. Well, now they have a module and they have this and they have that, and they don't realize that, this could have been fixed. It had some, broken wires or whatever, and it could have been fixed for, 500 with the diagnostic time, multiple hours to chase down the wiring and everything else, and it was fixed. Unfortunately, like even for customers, they see more. That's so you found some broken wires and you're charging me $500.
Exactly. Yep.
Compared to, I got a module that I didn't need. They don't know that. I got a module, and then the programming, and then the time to install it, and that was $1,200. And and you're trying to charge me $500 for 3 broken wires. So it's all. But that's about how the service writer sells it to the customer, and a lot of that is from the stories that technician, we go back to that, where the story that the technician writes up. And if we need more diagnostic time, give them the value of what they're paying for that first hour. If you need more time, tell them these are the steps that we're gonna check for these. These are our next steps of what we need to check. Show them the value in your time to continue forward. That way that they feel like, man, they really went. They did a lot, and even read the story. Tell them. If anybody has questions, like, okay, so ATG, if you go on to Automotive Training Group, there's downloads, and there's downloads to where, like, question surveys, as far as when does the symptom happen? Is it cold first start in the morning? The questions that we as service writers, they forget to ask. But then there's also another download and everything too for the technician stories, to where they can write down, okay, this, I checked X, Y, and Z. This is, that document their process. And then, okay, this is where we're at. We need additional time, and these are the next things that we are gonna check. And that way the service writer can straight up, read that to the customer, give them the value for it, show them that, our time is valuable. This is a complex system. Vehicles are complex nowadays. I don't care what you're working on, let's say, but they are. And it takes that skill set, and it takes that knowledge. And it's not just any, guy changing the oil and stuff that can fix a lot of these vehicles with the drivability concerns and stuff. So, or you can take it over here, and they can throw modules at it and everything else. And then by the time it does get to a good drivability tech, they're all out of money.
Yep. And then we get that sympathetic owner or service advisor or whatever, who knows that they're out of money and feels for them. And then he tries to discount it even more. That's the completely wrong step. I got to ask you, Cody, because, you see it and you go to these shops, and sometimes the conversation comes up, or the topic comes up. Are mobile guys like doing what you do? Are we keeping some of the shops in the business, in the industry, that should have gone the way of the dinosaur? And are we really doing it?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
And let me touch on this. Okay. So I do say this. Okay. So when I first went mobile, I was taking any shop that would pretty much call. I was even doing individuals, which that was a mistake. But I'd show up to one shop in particular, and it's a 2-bay shop. There's 2 cars on the lifts. There's 2 cars underneath it. There's 100 cars in the parking lot. Wow. And their guys are out there on the dirt lot, pulling motors, pulling transmissions, jack stands on their back. I mean, they don't have a lift to work out of it, because they don't move those cars. And they expect me to work like that and stuff too. Well, I did. And unfortunately I did, right? To the point that, their sink is a garden hose in the back with the garden hose and some Gojo right there. And that's the shop sink.
Yeah.
If you need to pee, it's the other yard. You just go back there and just go, take a piss.
There's a bucket.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is what, and that was, what the hell am I doing? Because I had some really good diags and stuff there. And it made that shop look like a hero.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. No. I'm just saying that, these were cars that have been to multiple other shops, and I made this shop that should not be in business, 100% should not be in business, look like the hero. And so, are mobile guys hurting shops like that? Yes. Okay. But on that note, let me back up for a second. So anybody that's a top shop owner, and my recommendation would be to go ride along with a mobile guy for a week and just see how things are. And you will realize that 90% of the shops shouldn't be in business.
Yeah.
And I say that, not, it's hard because, I go to some real reputable shops that have some really great talent, and they're missing simple things. And why are they missing simple things? Because these guys are not going to training. The shop's not investing into the training to send their guys there because it's too expensive. Well, it's expensive not to send your guys there because they're calling me in.
Yeah.
For simple stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. I get the hard stuff too. I mean, I get the cars that has had Identifix thrown up at it, and it had one problem. Now it has 6. and then it's been to 4 other shops. So now we have incorrect part numbers
Yep.
for parts. We have, there's so many different variables, and we have to shift through all that to come up with a conclusion, a resolution, and to get these cars fixed. But are mobile guys hurting? Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing: shops need to change. There's a reason there's mobile guys out here that are making a living. I'm trying to put myself out of business. Take advantage of it, or send your guys to training. Go to these, spend $39 and go to a webinar. You'll get something out of it, man. So I wish every shop was a Dutch and Lucas and David, and I wish every shop paid for tools and everything else. Unfortunately, that's not any of the shops that I've ever worked at. And now that I'm mobile and I go into a majority of the shops here in town, that's not a reality here
Yeah.
at all. I mean, they are the unicorns, and those are the shops that I would pack up my mobile stuff and go work at a shop if there was one like that
Yeah.
here. But they're not, man. I mean, look how Perkins runs it. I mean, he pays for
I
every
was
single
just going to
tool,
mention him.
down to the
Yeah.
flashlight, to
Crazy.
the snacks, to food. I mean, it's just it's real expensive. Now, don't get me wrong. I spend a lot of money on tools a year, but I also run a business, right? But I also spent a lot of money a year when I worked in a shop, and I was still spending 15, 20 grand a year when I worked in a shop. So
Yeah.
take that right off the top. So let's say you're making $100,000. There's $20,000 that you can't claim on your taxes and
Yep.
stuff anymore.
Yep.
So now you're getting double penalized, right? So now you're making $80,000. You know, that you should be able to make $100,000 without a constant, continuous 15, $20,000 every single year
Venture.
just to
Yeah,
keep that.
for sure. Now,
So,
I got to ask you, because this is kind of a two-part to the question we just asked. Brian Pollock and I talk all the time, and Brian, you know how I love the dude. We talk every day. He talks
oh
about
yeah,
how
mine's
sometimes the
awesome.
industry has built the need for the independent guys like your or diagnostic guys like yourself, and not only that, it has pushed people like yourself out of shops and created the market that is what Cody does and Keith Perkins and Tanner Brandt and Matthew Scundridge, all these people that every day go around and fix these cars because we force people like you, talent out of a shop. Do you agree with that?
100%. I mean, that's the whole reason that I have the business that I have, and the whole reason I went mobile and everything else was trying to communicate to shops that this network diagnostics should be a level 3 diagnostics, and we need to start at 3 hours, and then we go from there. Uh, and and no, you just go ahead and do it. I'll pay you, so I get paid. But they don't. The customer doesn't get charged, so the customer thinks the $150 fix their network diagnostics.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the month, sure, Cody's really not, there's really not gross profit in anything that Cody's doing, because man, we've coupon $20,000 this last month of the services that he's done, when we should have been selling more work to benefit the shop, to benefit the technician, to benefit everybody involved, right? But we're not, and we're going to discount it and stuff because we think that's what's right for the customer. So no, so now you force me out and to go out on my own. To now, when you call me, I am charging for every single hour that I'm there, and that $139 that you were charging the customer, now it's a $500 bill from myself. I don't know how you're going to figure
Yeah.
that out with the customer, but I'm charging
Sure.
what I feel is this repair is worth.
Yeah.
So if shops want to change and start charging appropriately, stop screwing around with any of the techs, not just the lead techs or anything else, but really invest back into the company, invest into your people, with training and education, and you know your service writers and managers should also be going to training. That's another thing. It shouldn't be a technician telling them how to run a
No.
business. I tell myself how to run my own business. I shouldn't be telling them how to run a business and how to charge appropriately for diagnostics. That's all done at training. That there's training for them.
And yet,
So are we helping them keep them afloat? 100%. But here's the thing: if we weren't helping them keep it afloat, man, I don't know where this industry would be right now because how bad it is
yeah,
already.
yep,
You know,
yeah. And the thing is, what was I going to say? So going back to what you're talking about when sometimes techs try to tell owners that they should charge more for this or they need to charge more for that, or, diag time needs to be more. We get labeled as like, well, you're always, techs are grouchy. Techs are, prima donnas. Techs are always trying to tell us how to run our business. We're not trying to tell you how to run the business per se. But if we have to show like an effective wage for that person that's working on that car, and we're tackling diag versus the parts margins way better on a strut job than it is on a fixing a broken wire. There's no parts on fixing a broken wire, maybe a piece of shrink tube if you want to bill it out, but there isn't there. So when we have to show our worth, we have to be upfront and demanding and say, okay, you need to charge a little bit more for me to show my worth because it's a different thing. But as soon as we put our hand up and start to say that, oh, you guys just always want more money. You always think you're the expert. If you're so smart, go do it yourself. The very real reality in this industry, and I hate to say it, and it's going to get a lot of people pissed. There are some techs working right now on your shop floor that probably have a better idea about how to run the business than you that own the business. And that sucks. It's terrible. It's a mean, shitty, realistic thing to say, but it's the truth. It's the truth, especially if you've been doing it for 20 years at a whatever level that you've been doing it. And that level hasn't been great. Maybe you bought yourself a job, right? Hats off to you.
yep.
But this young person that is invested and is networking and is seeing the change that's happening, you need to be listening to that person, because just because they're not an owner doesn't mean that they don't have value in their input. They have a lot of value in their input. It's a young minds with a different perspective is sometimes more valuable than experience.
Yep. We're in an industry that you need to be open-minded. You can't be closed off. Obviously, look at all the changes and everything else. Look at the guys, when carburetor, everything was going to fuel injection. Oh man, I'm not changing with the times. Cool. You're going to be left behind. Okay, ABS, right? The industry is changing so fast, so rapidly and stuff. Now you have to be able to adapt and grow. This isn't 1976 anymore. We went years and years and years where there was very minimal
Oh,
changes, so to speak. I mean, for the last 15 years compared to the last 100 years before that, the technology is just 10 times what it was, and it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And that's where it's listening to. I don't care if it's the lube tech. No, everybody should have a say, or he may be the next latest and greatest, and he's just the lube tech right now. But you don't know what he's going to become. And it's willing to grow. It's willing to make changes, listening to everybody, and I think I know for myself that was one of the big things that I was looking for a shop, because I wanted to have a say. I wanted us to get into the last shop I was at. I wanted us to get into ADOS. I wanted, I wanted us to. I wanted to move that shop into something that, man, and at that time there was nothing here in town. Man, we really could have tapped the market. Like, Jeff, I'm telling you, like, there was business that just makes sense, right? And they didn't see it, and it's like they've missed that shit now. But man, if we could have got it in 2020 before the other ADOS company and stuff opened up, man, they could have already had the market tapped. They could. And just listening to a guy like myself, just because I went to the training and I saw where everything was going, man, this ADOS, man, we can really deal with body shops. And then guess what, you're dealing with insurance. You don't even have to like ask for customers permission, not permission, but the insurance is paying it.
yeah. Yeah.
That's guaranteed money right there, and it has to be done after a collision. So it's listen to your guys. You never know what the next great opportunity, you know, it, willing to expand, willing to get into new things that you may not, that you may be scared of, and or it's, also maybe getting into just specializing. It doesn't have to be the general repair for everything. If you really like electronics and everything else, and you can create a business just for electrical repair and diagnostics. That there's or if you have that guy, make him the diagnostic guy, and make it like a dealership. I know when the guys over at Buick, there's the suspension guys, there's the drivability guy. They had their own department. And that's what they did all day long, and that works for some. You know,
I got to ask you, because you're out there a lot. Is the technician shortage really as bad as it's made out to be?
oh man, it's horrible. And honestly, I don't know. Looking back now, and I really hate to talk bad about the industry and stuff, but man, knowing what I know now, would I have gotten into the industry? It's don't get me wrong, it's given me an awesome lifestyle and everything else. I'm not a millionaire by any means, but I'm happy. I enjoy what I do. But it's also come with a lot of frustration, and I lost out on 14 years of my daughter's life that I can't get back. The volleyball games that I will never be able to attend. And that right there is unfortunate. There's no money amount of money. The money I was making wasn't worth
Yeah,
that, right?
what you missed.
So it's real hard to sit here. And my daughter wants to, she wants to. She's rode along with me, and she's like, "Man, when I get out of high school and stuff," and I even offered, I was like, "I'll hire you outside of or during high school. You go around to a couple of the shops, and I'll give you a certain percentage of how modules that you're programming," because she's programmed a GM and a Ford, and so I'm showing her each software and how it works, and what to do and stuff, and but I want her to get into this industry? Jeff, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I told her. She needs to go and get a degree, whatever that may be, even if it's in computer, into IT, or whatever. But you need to go out and explore, and don't just fall into this because I'm in this. If she can go a different route, then I'm all for that. Even if it's business, getting a degree in business management, or you know whatever it may be. But it's real hard to sit here and
And
knowing where the industry is until shops start changing, to sit here and 100% like be like it's the best thing ever. Like, go be a technician, because man, I see what's out there. I go to these shops and it sucks. Like, it really needs to change if if it's going to get any better. And that's just the God honest truth. I mean, I, that's where it's at.
so, what's the next 5 years look like for Cody and Cody's Auto Diagnostics and Programming? Where do you have, like, can you see that as bringing her on as an employee, or do you want another employee? Would you like to get one? Do you not have one because
Yeah.
you can't find one, or?
So yeah, that's part of it. Is I don't have one because I trying to find one. I know that getting an employee would probably be the best thing for me, because my appointments. So right now during the summer, it's I'm not even scheduling any diagnostics, because, like I said, I
Just
summers here are crazy. They're hot. Cars are breaking. So just my programming alone, I'm doing anywhere from 8 to 10 programmings a day. I can't even keep up with that, let alone take on drivability issues or diagnostic issues and stuff at this time. And then on top of that, I'm usually out in the parking lot, so that's another variable and stuff too. That during the summer, that's not going to work for me. And I value myself, and there's no amount of price that I can charge a shop, even if it's $500 an hour, that it's worth it for me to be out in the middle of the parking lot and scorching 110-degree heat. Normally, I like it, but not the summer is like our is like your
yeah.
winters. You know what I mean? That's the time of the year where no, it sucks here. So yeah, I need an employee. I really I think an employee would be good. It would help me step away a little bit to focus on back into the diagnostics and give me some breathing room. Right now, just answering the phone is a full time job.
Yeah.
And answering the phone, and when I say that, these are shops that, hey, I just put a transmission in a 2013 GM. Does it need to be programmed?
Yeah.
I mean, this is 100% calls that I get all day long. That I am all data and Mitchell and Identifix all rolled into one. That I have all the answers. When they pay for these subscriptions, and you know how much time that takes out of my day to answer these stupid questions, or hey, it's 4:30 on a Friday. We just put this transmission in. We didn't realize it needed to be programmed. Can you get it done tonight? No,
No. Yeah.
the car's been there for a week. You could have called, you could have read service information, that last step where it says
Yeah.
programming. You could have called and scheduled. I'm sorry, but it's getting harder and harder to feel sorry for shops when they can't even read the service information. And this goes from the technicians to the service writers.
Yeah.
They both need to be reading just the repair procedure, because the technician's not always going to know, but then the service writer should know that, man, does this need programming? Does this need X, Y, and Z? But then you're going to call me and get frustrated with me because I'm going to tell you 3 days. I'll get to you in 3 days when the car's been done, when you've had the car for a week, and you could have made the appointment on Monday for Wednesday.
Yeah. You'd have penciled them in.
And like today, I mean, I drove all the way across town. I talked to the guy on the phone. You saying I'll be there in a couple hours. I had two cars. I had a Nissan for a program, and then I had a Diagnostics. Drove all the way out there. Oh, hey, we're just going to send the car to the dealer. Okay. All right. Is the other vehicle ready for the programming? No, it's not ready either. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. You just wasted my time, and and this is where it's frustrating to as a business owner. You just wasted my time where I could have been making money somewhere else. You get charged.
Yeah. I was
I
just
mean, I charge them my show up fee, and it's just such a time waste, and the multiple calls a day. Does it need this, and does this need programming, and does this need man? Look it up. Look it up, man. Like, Matthew Skunkridge would give a hard time, like, look at service information. But now being mobile, I am Matthew Skunkridge. It's like, look it up.
Yeah. It's there.
Like,
It's there.
come on, man.
You need to, what you do is you have to have all your calls go to a voice answer system, right? So you don't answer and make that in the voice answer. Just, okay, thank you for calling Cody Auto Diagnostics. Now, before I call you back, have you checked out your service information?
Did you read service information? Man, I like that. You know what? I think I'm going to put that on my voicemail when I get off of here.
I'll definitely give it to you. You've given me enough. So this has been great, Cody. Honestly, I want to thank you for coming on. This podcast is about, showcasing people like yourselves, right? People that have taken that step and have not been afraid to tell their story, and then get into the meat and the potatoes of why you made the choices you did, why you went down the path that you did, and why you think, so many of us are doing the same thing. That's what this is all about is, I don't have the answer. You don't have the answer. It's like we were talking about it. You don't know the one answer about how do we fix this industry. But I think that if we keep talking to each other with open communication about why you made the choice that you did, what this made you feel like this, and this made me feel like that, we're going to get closer. Is there ever an end game? I don't think there's ever an end game as to where we get this perfect. But, right now, what we've been doing for the last 25 years has not been working. So it's time
exactly. And that's all I was going to say is right now it just seems so overwhelming, right? Because it's such a big picture, and there's so much that needs to change. Do I think it can happen? 100%. Like I said, this is the industry's been great to me, and I wanted to be as transparent as possible. My frustrations in it and the experiences that I have had. But that being said, if I could go back in time, would I have changed it? Probably not. I would have done some things differently, but I would probably be in this field doing what I love, because this is one thing that I'm really good at. And and I enjoy, and I'm continuing to grow every single day and everything. So everything that I was saying, I was just trying to be candid,
Oh,
and but things do need to change, and I'm so passionate about it because, man, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to have so much passion, and not for shop owners or other business people in this industry not to have that same kind of passion and think that they'll just get by,
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
sucks.
Getting by has gotten us where we are. So on that note, well,
Exactly.
I want to thank you. Are you going to go to AST this year?
Man, so I really want to, and I took the wife last time, and man, we loved it out there.
Yeah.
So I'm it's still up in the air. I really want to. So are you going this year, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going. Last year I went, and that was life changing. I thought like I'm,
Oh
how
man,
I've
it's
been,
so
right?
cool.
Yeah. You know how I've
Yeah,
been. And then to get there and realize that it was like, there's so many people that are having the conversations just like we had. And there's so many people that are implementing the changes that we actually want to see changing, that it's like, oh my God, we're not doomed. You know what I mean? That was a
yeah,
life changing event for me. So, I mean, I tell everybody like,
it is.
I'm going. I'm going to go and record a bunch, meet a bunch more people that I haven't met. Like the highlight of my life now was Paul Danner was there last year, right? So I got to meet Paul. And I mean, I've been friends with Paul for a long time, but I'd never met him. Same with Brian. Brian and I have been friends forever. Never met the dude. He's huge. If you've never met him, he is a
Oh, he
giant of a man.
is. He is. And I haven't met him yet either, but man, I can just tell. I mean, he's huge, and
Yeah,
but that's what's cool about social media. I mean, you network with these guys for so long, and you become, these are some of my best friends, and
yeah,
but then you finally meet them in person, and it's like, man, after years of talking, and it's like, man, you already like know everything about the guy. You talk multiple times a day, a week, whatever it is, and it's like now you can finally, my wife didn't understand it until she went out to and she got to meet Paul, and so it was just after she saw it, she's like, man, this is huge. Like it's such a cool experience, and that's coming for somebody that's completely 100% outside the industry.
mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Man, this is awesome."
Yeah. To
So,
sit down and have dinner with Super Mario and Paul Danner at the same table.
yep,
The first night there was just like, I'm sitting there just pinching myself over and again, going, like,
yeah,
what am I doing sitting here with Brian and Corey and like, it's like they let the dumb kid walk in and sit with these fantastic, amazing people. But it was, yeah, it's a life-changing event. If anybody can make it, they really should. Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASA group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10 millimeter, and we'll see you all again next time.